Hello, this is Garrett. I am making my second video blog for the day. Thought I was going to be done and ended up came across something that really bothered me to the point that I felt like I needed to do a second video blog for today. I went and groomed my beard and got a shower, brushed my teeth, put on a clean shirt. And I thought, I'm just going to sit down and do another video blog and get right to it. A couple of days ago, I mentioned something in another video blog about tips to spot false news. This thing that came up to greet me when we came back from the hospital from having my sixth son, John, born. And it was a notice that came up at the top of my feed as I logged into Facebook for the first time. And I clicked through. It was basically putting me on notice that Facebook was going to be combating false news. And there was a read more opportunity, and I took advantage of that opportunity. And I'll read this for you again. I included it in my earlier video. Took a video that day where I discussed it, but I want to read it again. It says, we are committed to reducing the spread of false news on Facebook. We remove fake accounts and disrupt economic incentives for people that share misinformation. Define misinformation, please. We also use signals like feedback from our community. Again, not limited to feedback from our community, like feedback from our community. Meaning, if some power-hungry whoever, or Zuckerberg, or Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton doesn't like something that you share on their community, then that would be included. It doesn't have to be that a bunch of people flag your stuff as being inappropriate. It could just be that the leftists that are in charge don't like what you have to say. So that's how they identify stories that may be false. Okay, may be false. They don't even have to determine that those stories are false. If they may be false, if they determine that, then they will remove fake accounts and disrupt economic incentives for people that share misinformation. In countries where we work with independent third-party fact checkers, stories rated as false by those fact checkers are shown lower in newsfeed. I will note, do your research. The third-party fact checkers in the U.S., of course, are Snopes, which is curated by leftist activists, literally true leftists, look it up, and George Soros organizations. Those are the third-party, independent third-party fact checkers for Facebook. And it says we rate them, when those stories rated by those fact checkers as false are shown lower in the newsfeed. So if you get 100 progressives, 100 Bernie Sanders supporters, and they decide, even if 50 or 60 of them decide that your story that you just shared about how great Donald Trump is and how dishonest the media has been in their portrayal of conservatism, if you share something from Breitbart, if you share something by National Review or whatever, if those third-party fact checkers decide that it may be false and they don't like what Ben Shapiro has to say, Matt Walsh has to say, what I have to say, then they're going to rank your share or your content or your, those voices, they're going to rank them lower in the newsfeed, which means you can't find that stuff as easily. If pages or domains repeatedly create or share misinformation, we significantly reduce their distribution and remove their advertising rights. Okay, so take note of this. This is going to be important here in a minute when I bring up what I just found today. If pages or domains repeatedly create or share misinformation, okay, again, they're determining what is misinformation by running everything through a screen of their worldview, their political persuasion, their goals for a secular, humanist, progressive future, political landscape, in America especially. And so if you're disagreeing with that, you're supporting a candidate they don't like, opposing a candidate they do like, supporting a policy proposal that they don't like, opposing a policy proposal that they do like. That could be termed misinformation, and then this tells us they're going to significantly reduce the distribution and remove advertising rights. So, On the Rocks blog has a few hundred people that have liked the page, and anymore, I think the reach, it tells us how many people have actually even scrolled by our content, and the reach is a couple dozen at most. We're not even talking about advertisement that gets the content in front of people that have never heard of us. We're talking about, I share something on the blog. I write an article. I spend days writing an article for the blog, or I do one of these video blogs, and I share that to the Facebook page for On the Rocks blog. And the people that have liked that we paid for advertising for a while. And we had a number of people that came to our page and they liked it, and they were following us, and only a very small percentage of those people actually see our content. And Facebook tells us that, and we can see it. We can track it in the numbers. It's verifiable. I could take screenshots and show it to you if you want. And this notice, which I've also screenshotted, is Facebook saying that's exactly what they do with pages or domains that repeatedly create or share misinformation. They significantly reduce their distribution, remove their advertising rights. Reading it right off of Facebook's page here. We're also working to empower people to decide for themselves what to read. Yeah, I'm sure you are. Decide for themselves. You're empowering them after you've brainwashed them. And then you're going to say, okay, 5, 5, 5, 5. What number am I thinking of? Is it 5? Oh, very good. Very good. You gave us the answer that we wanted to hear, because we just only allowed that answer to show up repeatedly in your news feed. 2 + 2 = 5. Very Orwellian and very disturbing what Facebook is doing. And they couch it all in this ministry of truth kind of language, with all these niceties, all these things that are not honest and they're not accurate. And glossy, beady-eyed Mark Zuckerberg is just grinning to himself like some kind of a robotic evil genius about how the cat's in the bag and we're all just going to take it because we can't live without Facebook anymore. Well, if you've got a business on Facebook, if you've made your livelihood on Facebook, if you coordinate and connect with people on Facebook, your whole world might be so intertwined with Facebook that for them to remove economic incentives is a really serious penalty. If your business if you have no storefront, you just advertise. Daniel, please stop that. Daniel Joseph, please stop that. Thank you. Okay. You have no storefront. You keep your overhead costs low, but you have a page on Facebook, like my wife. And you have people placing orders and sharing your content. And what happens if I accidentally share something from my YouTube channel, or something from Drudge Report, something from Fox News, something that's positive about Donald Trump, something political? I accidentally share something to my wife's sewing page, Evelyn Ever After. What happens if all of a sudden only 5%, only 2.5% of the people that have liked her page that she's tried to build up into a customer base, only 5% of them can now see her material because she engaged in some political speech that Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook don't like. The Bernie Sanders fact checkers don't like. So, in addition to this, there's they've put together a short film about their fight against misinformation. And then they've got a 10-point list here of tips on how to look out for fake news. Very helpful. Okay. Thank you very much. But, again, define your terms. And Zuckerberg, when he testified before the Senate and the House, and he was asked to define fake news, to define hate speech, dodged and squirmed like you wouldn't believe, and would not answer that question for anything, because they don't want to admit that those are terms that they've made up that don't have inherent meaning, and then they can just throw whatever they want into that junk drawer, into that catch-all. Anything that they want to be able to censor or suppress, just throw it into those junk drawers, and then set fire to it, and just say, oh, I didn't realize that was it looked like hate speech. Well, you didn't even define hate speech. You can't even tell us what it is. Oh, it looked like fake news. Really, what is fake news? Well, that's anything you disagree with, anything that challenges your narrative is what it is. Moving on. So that was a number of days ago. I took that screenshot. We came home from the hospital. I think it was Wednesday evening, and talked about it on a video blog, and made my thoughts known. Here, funny thing of it is, Wednesday I was also called to maybe get a little bit involved in local politics here. At least to take a second look at who I was supporting for House District 35 in Montana's State House of Representatives. And so I started talking about doing a video blog, interviewing the candidate, and just giving my thoughts. Here's what I think about who's running and what's at stake here. And then I did a YouTube video and I shared it where I was talking about local politics and Facebook censorship. And doggone it all, if today I do another video blog and I'm talking about Black Panther, the movie, Marvel's Avengers superhero movie, Black Panther, Trump's remarks on MS-13 animals, referring to them as animals, Americans who don't read, according to Jimmy Kimmel. So I'm talking about education, I'm talking about culture, I'm talking about politics. It's all rolled into one big thing. And being an administrator, a page administrator for Facebook pages, for On the Rocks blog, for Evelyn Ever After, I get notifications when Facebook wants to sell advertising to me. And I've advertised through Facebook before, many times. Haven't had the money for it for a while now. Times is tough. So I started a GoFundMe page for the blog, because I thought, I'd like to be able to pay for the costs associated with having a successful blog, a successful Facebook page. You have to pay for advertising. These days, we have to pay even to be able to reach the people that have liked our page. It's ridiculous. But, one very generous friend of ours from Ohio, who actually, her and her husband, they moved out to North Dakota, Montana, around the same time that we did, for the very same reasons that we were looking for economic opportunity that was not to be found in southern Ohio, certainly not for people our age. And she donated $50 to this GoFundMe page. And I've been thinking about that. Nobody else has donated a dime, which is discouraging. It's frustrating that here I've put 3 or 4 years in on this blog endeavor. I've put all this time and heart and soul and blood and sweat and tears into it. All this research, all these hours of writing and trying to fine-tune the message and trying to be purposeful about it, trying to be intentional, trying to be an influence for the good in the world. And I make this GoFundMe page for the first time after 3.5 years. And no family, no family supports it. Nobody in our extended circle of friends except for one gal. One gal. She doesn't go to our church. She's not family. Just has read the material and says, I really support what you're doing, and I appreciate it, and I've learned things in your articles, and I hope you keep it up. And that one little bit of encouragement, hugely important, I think, to sustaining an effort like that. But for all I know, my GoFundMe page might be invisible. It might be that nobody saw the GoFundMe page. It could be that I don't know. It could be that it's just not of value. It could be that so many people are chilled by what's been happening with the censorship of voices, of dissent on social media. They could be chilled by what's happened with the IRS going after conservatives. It could be that they're chilled by government officials and private business owners being taken to court and ruined and paraded before the country and ruined. Their careers, livelihoods, businesses ruined because they dared to say no when they were being asked to affirm the progressive agenda's pet project of the LGBT movement. And so, hey, who knows? Maybe it is just friends and family who say, whoa, okay, Garrett, you're a little bit too on point. Yeah, we agree with what you're saying, but you're coming on a bit strong there, and we can't be known for liking and subscribing to and sharing the content that you're putting out there. We don't want to get, we're going to be a bit cautious in how much we support or encourage what you're doing there, because it's just not, the future's not looking bright for that viewpoint, and for advocating that, and for being a voice of reason in the public discourse. For even though we agree with that position, you're on your own there, buddy. And believe me, I am feeling it. With the exception of this one gal. This one gal, she gives $50, which I was blown away by. I had kind of given up on anybody giving anything, and I was feeling pretty discouraged about it, depressed, if you want to know the truth. And then she gives us $50, and so Facebook gives me this notification. It says, "Hey, high-performing posts like yours could be, we'll give you a $5 credit if you want to boost this post." And so this, here it is. I've shared it earlier today. And this is the remark that I made when I shared video blog 15 from my YouTube page. Took it just this morning. Black Panther trumps MS-13 animals and Americans who don't read. And this is my remark. Isn't it remarkable that when Marvel makes a movie about a comic book hero named after an animal, it's the best thing ever? Yet when President Trump refers to the violent gang members of MS-13, the world's most violent gang, as animals, he's being a fascist and using dehumanizing language. Watch this episode of Garrett's YouTube video blog to hear more about exercising discernment in consuming mass media and unpacking the worldviews and ideas being communicated all around us. So, Facebook sends me a notification. It says, "Hey Garrett, you want to put an ad on that?" And I'm thinking, I haven't done that for a couple of years now, but I do have this $50 from this GoFundMe page. Tabitha Bowline has donated. I hope she doesn't mind. It shows up on the GoFundMe page, and she is a sweetheart, and God bless Tabitha Bowline. But I thought, well, I've got $50 from her that she gave to the GoFundMe, and maybe it'd be interesting to see what would happen after all these years of not advertising if I did put a little bit of money to advertise on this. Maybe that would, increase some traffic to the blog. It would increase some traffic to my YouTube video blog that I've just started up here recently. So I click on this, and the banner that shows up across the top of this ad preview, where it's allowing me to build the ad campaign for this post. I've got a yellow bar with one of those little caution symbols, and then it says in big bold letters, "Not authorized for ads with political content." It looks like this ad may have political content, but your page has not been authorized to run these types of ads. To begin the authorization process, please visit your page's settings. And then it has a click-through where you can learn more. And I'm like, what is this? This is new. Hadn't heard anything about this. Well, let's go back for a second. I want to read from a couple of days ago the message that greeted me when I came home from the hospital with the tips to spot false news. One of the things it says in the first paragraph is, if pages or domains repeatedly create or share misinformation, we significantly reduce their distribution and remove their advertising rights. Oh, okay. So, it could be that I have obviously been able to advertise political ideas and articles. That's pretty much all we were writing, and as certainly all that I had any care to advertise was if I wrote an article about my position on a political issue. I wanted to get the reach out there and let people know. I wanted to influence the public discourse. Why not? I mean, and in case you're not catching this, I'm not a Russian bot, okay? I'm not a Russian robot. I don't have even a hint of a Russian accent. I've never been to Russia. I couldn't. Da and niet. There's two Russian words I know, and I think I only know those from playing video games. Medal of Honor or Battlefield 1942. I don't even remember what game it was. I'm not a Russian bot, okay? So all of this crap about Facebook starting this campaign against Russian interference in our elections, pretty clearly not Russian. All these YouTube videos that I'm posting, if you took half a second, third-party fact checkers, you could verify. Why doesn't Facebook have the third-party fact checkers? Just watch one of my YouTube videos or look at any of the thousands of pictures that I've posted to Facebook from Montana. Do a quick public records search. Do a quick Ancestry.com search. I'm obviously from the USA. I'm obviously an American citizen. I'm not a Russian bot. You know what you're doing, Facebook. You're trying to censor conservative thought and conservative political opinions and conservative voices and potential future threats to your utopian, globalist, socialist vision. And it's evil what you're doing. It is. I don't care if you're a private company. I don't care if some libertarian is going to say you have the right to do that on your platform because it's your company. It's evil what you're doing, because the positions that you've taken, that you're protecting and that you're promoting, the positions are decidedly and consistently on the side of evil. Israel versus Palestine, Israel versus the Muslim world. Well, let's condemn Israel as the Democrats. Let's condemn the only nation in the Middle East that actually cares a whit about human rights in any meaningful, objective fashion. Let's kowtow to the Muslims and even let them have hateful Palestinian pages where they talk about death to Israelis. But you start a page pro-Israel, and that gets flagged and taken down right quick, doesn't it? Somebody blasphemes the prophet in Pakistan, and guess what? You've given the Pakistani government backdoor tools to be able to spot that and arrest that guy, put him to death, throw him in prison, whatever you need to do in order to get entry into Pakistan and make money and get your influence out there and get intel on what the Pakistanis are doing and how to rule the world, factoring in their particular culture and modes of thinking and acting. Abortion. You're going to suppress content, and Twitter does this too, and I'm sure all the social media giants are going to go with it. It's just a matter of time, just a question of particulars and timing. Suppressing pro-life messengers, people that argue against infanticide, argue against little babies being murdered en masse in America, a mass murder that's been happening for the past, 40, 50 years? How long has it been? Since 1973 with Roe versus Wade. You're going to silence opinions on abortion if they challenge the progressive view, and you're going to call that Russian interference in elections, I bet. That's going to be your game. So, I'm not authorized for ads with political content. Interesting. Okay, so I click Learn More, because I want to learn more about what it is that I'm not allowed to do anymore, and why, and when did this become a thing? And one of the things, they say that, if you're writing content, publishing content on behalf of or about any political candidate, then that qualifies as political content, and you need to now submit personal information, identifying information to Facebook. They need to check you out, find out where you live, and the last 4 digits of your social security number. You need to be able to figure out who you are and where you live. Isn't that chilling in the days of Antifa? No, thank you. No, thank you. I bet you would like to know where we live. In case censoring us on Facebook, just silencing our opinions, if that doesn't work, and we find ways to get through anyway, I bet it'd be real useful to figure out where the most staunchly political people live. I bet you'd love to know that. And here's the thing too, right? What? Oh, you want a pacifier? You're a big boy. You don't need a here's the thing too, okay? So it's political candidates, but it's also national issues of public importance. Because I could say to myself, oh, that's pretty easy to do. I don't have to talk about a specific political candidate. I don't have to talk about Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or Hillary Clinton or any of these guys. For that matter, I don't have to necessarily talk about Joel Crowder running for House District 35 in Montana's local state House of Representatives. I don't have to talk about Tanya Rost running for political office here in eastern Montana, this local district. I don't have to talk about them specifically by name and say who I support and why, or talk about any of the facts surrounding one of them having been the head of the college Democrats at Liberty University, yet now running as a Republican and getting money from all over the country and very little from Richland County, where he's actually running. You don't have to talk about any of that. And conveniently, Facebook could say, hey, you need to ask us for permission to be able to communicate to a broader audience in your area about political issues. And then I come and I say, okay, can I have permission? Well, it depends. Who do you support? You support Joel Crowder, head of the college Democrats at Liberty University? Well, no. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to give you permission to have political ads on Facebook. I don't know if you're really checking out. You might be sharing some misinformation, even though you could do a quick Google search and find on the first page, one of the first results on the first page, something from CNN's blog 9 years ago, back in 2009, where they refer to Joel Crowder as being head of the college Democrats. It could be misinformation. Oh man, I can't. We're going to have to limit your reach there, buddy. Somebody else comes in and they say, I'd like permission to run a political ad for John Tester. Maybe Billings Gazette. They say, hey, we want to run a bunch of articles about any number of leftist positions and be very deceptive about it. Can we have permission to run some ads on political issues, or write about political issues, including, and there's a list. I've got this screenshotted as well. Facebook's got a list for us. This is an initial list of top-level issues that will be considered to require advertiser authorization and labeling for ads targeting the U.S. We expect this list may evolve over time. Abortion. Oh boy, you picked the number one issue about which I would like to be able to write and say, I object. The number one issue for me is us not murdering babies in their mother's wombs by the thousands in this country every single day. And then my tax dollars going to that. That's the number one issue I'd like to write and talk about. But I've got to ask permission now from Facebook in order to write and talk about that on their platform. Or else, if I don't get permission to advertise, and they decide that whatever I'm saying might be misinformation for the greater good, they're going to reserve the right to limit the reach of my content to where it might be, for all intents and purposes, like I didn't even write anything to begin with. Excuse me. I'm trying to take a video. Do you need something? Just a hug?
I just want to be in your video.
Oh, you just want, okay. All right. So, all right, abortion. That's the top of the list here. Abortion, budget, civil rights, crime, economy, education, energy, environment, foreign policy, government reform, guns, health, immigration, infrastructure, military poverty, social security, taxes, terrorism, values. All right. So let's get this straight. You pretty much made a list of everything I like to write about. Right there. I don't even know. I did an article about Moana, the morality of Disney's movie Moana. That probably falls under values here, or terrorism, because I likened the view of good and evil to a very dangerous approach to the war on terror, where you just give the Mohammedans what they want, and then they're appeased, and then they'll let you alone. And that's what we're teaching little children. That's what they're being indoctrinated in. That probably falls under education. That probably falls under terrorism and values and military. And now I've got to get permission from Facebook. I have to have the blessing of Facebook and these third-party fact checkers before I can publish that content on Facebook. Boy, howdy. That's just super. Apparently, this is not something that was done in private. I'm not the only one who's seeing it. I was just seeing it for the very first time. But this has been announced, I guess, earlier this month, earlier last month, back in October. They had made signs like they were going to do this. No, go. Go. Here, take this with you. Go, put that away. Nope. You made an extended appearance. Good job. ZDNet.com, which I've never heard of. It's probably Zuckerberg Daily Net. I don't know. Facebook is only allowing authorized ad buyers to run political issue ads. From the article, it quotes Senator Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia, Vice Chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, commending the latest steps from Facebook. He says, I quote, most of the paid ads the Internet Research Agency ran on Facebook prior to the 2016 election didn't mention Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, but they did mention divisive political issues like guns, LGBT rights, immigration, and racial issues, he said in a statement. That's why today's announcement by Facebook is so important. And I would encourage all of the platform companies to follow suit. Okay, libertarians, I'm talking to you. If you're listening, you can say, you don't like what Zuckerberg is doing, you don't like what Facebook's doing here, get off of Facebook. It's Zuckerberg's platform. Okay. What happens when Google and Twitter and YouTube, YouTube already censors, puts age restrictions, content restrictions on videos from PragerU. Dennis Prager is about the most mild-mannered, kind-hearted, nice, friendly, approachable, conservative person out there. He's not saying anything outrageous. He's not saying let's go bomb abortion clinics or anything like that. He is very charming and winsome in the way that he goes about things, but just like Tim Allen getting removed from ABC's Last Man Standing, his show being canceled despite good ratings, a warm reception from the public. Just like he said, the most dangerous thing to the left right now is a likable conservative. Dennis Prager and Prager University on YouTube represents a huge threat to leftism because it represents likable conservatism. They would much rather, I bet you, they would much rather have InfoWars and Breitbart with all of their prickly, abrasive way of going about things, have that be the image that most people have in their minds of what conservatism is. They sure don't want Tim Allen and Dennis Prager being the vision of conservatism, conservative values. Also from the article in ZDNet, and I quote, in his own blog post, CEO Mark Zuckerberg wrote, these steps by themselves won't stop all people trying to game the system. Game the system? You mean use your platform to communicate ideas that you dislike and to challenge the agenda that you're trying to promote. That's what you mean. Game the system. That's not what Facebook is for. Facebook is for my political agenda and insinuating it very subversively and making people think that they're communicating freely with one another, even as we're gathering information on them and using it against them to try and impose a tyrannical government in their nation. Gaming the system that I designed to bring about the election of Bernie Sanders or whatever comes after Bernie Sanders. So he says these steps by themselves won't stop all people trying to game the system, and you can also bet good money. What he means there is we're not done yet. This is just the beginning, or this isn't going to be enough. But they will make it a lot harder for anyone to do what the Russians did during the 2016 election and use fake accounts and pages to run ads. Okay. So, question. Fake accounts and pages to run ads. Somebody is behind the accounts and the pages running the ads. I am Garrett Ashley Mullet. I am the primary author and chief editor of On the Rocks blog at onthe.rocks. We have a Facebook page. As far as I know, we still have a Facebook page. I wrote the lion's share of the content on the Rocks since September 1st, September 2nd of 2015. Wrote the bulk of the content, over 120 articles. And I advertised on Facebook with my own money to try and increase our readership, increase the reach of several important articles that I put a lot of heart, soul, and attention into. I don't work for the Russians. My family, they were Mennonites. On my dad's side, my mom's side, my grandmother was Rosie the Riveter kind of gal in World War II, worked on airplanes. My grandfather was a nurse, patching men up on their way back from the Normandy D-Day invasion. Had a nervous breakdown over it. Thank you very much. A hero. Both of them contributing to the war effort in World War II. Americans. My grandfather on my dad's side, Merchant Marine. Merchant Marines had the highest casualty rate of any branch of the U.S. military in World War II. Merchant Marine. And, Americans. As far back as I know the names of anybody on either side. And I've looked it up on Ancestry.com. You can look me up on Ancestry.com. Born in Glendive, Montana. And no, I won't give you my last four of my Social Security so that you can approve whether I get to share my opinion on Facebook. I mean, dude, just what? How checked out and brain dead do they think we are? This is going to be okay. I mean, and Facebook lost, what was it, like 10% of their members since the Senate committee meeting. It's over crap like this, where all of a sudden you've put the conservatives on notice that you will be silenced. We will bring you to heel on our platform. And you won't even necessarily know that we've done it. You'll just think that you've gotten a lot less popular. I frankly don't know how much of my decrease in reach is because people have said, I don't want to see that anymore, and they just click away from it. And how much is because Facebook can just, with a click of a button, with the activation of an algorithm, they can say, boom, 10%. Now you only reach 10% of the people that you're friends with. How do you like that? You've been a bad boy. No more conservative opinions for you. No more influence for you. And this may not seem like it's very serious, but that's only the only people that don't think this is very serious are people that don't understand how fundamentally social media transforms public opinion. They haven't done the research. They haven't looked at where this has been tried in other countries to influence elections. They ran experiments in other countries to see if they could swing elections by emphasizing positive news stories or negative news stories about this candidate or another, or suppressing all news entirely about this candidate or the other. No news can be good news in some cases, but if you're running for office and nobody knows who you are, there's no name recognition whatsoever, you can't even put your signs in people's yards, and you can't run an ad on Facebook, and your competitor can. All those people that aren't paying attention, all these millennials who can't tell the difference between right and wrong because they were raised without reading books, just reading their feelings, all these kids that are marching in the streets for the confiscation of guns, who are being led by this David Hogg, whether he is or isn't a crisis actor is completely irrelevant to the fact that a lot of young people are ready to march out of their schools and campaign for the abolishment of the Bill of Rights. Thank you very much. That generation, whichever of them you can't control by having brainwashed them in their K through 12 and in college. They're planning on using social media 10 times as effectively as they've used your major broadcasting networks, your ABC, your CBS, your NBC, your PBS, and then your cable news broadcasts. I mean, MSNBC, your Fox News, your et cetera, to craft narratives, to control the popular perception of what's going on, and to limit. You can create straw men. You present the alternative to your policies as being so absurd and ridiculous, and then you prevent the other side from making their case. You cut to commercial break. You don't have them on. You talk over them the entire time that you're interviewing them. Boy, howdy, you can't let social media and the Russians game the system and start get people thinking for themselves and having their own opinions. Boy, howdy, you can't have that. Oh man, what's next? I mean, you might have the collapse of the whole crooked affair. The people that think you can just leave Facebook alone and you go somewhere else. Okay, let me compare that to what it's like. Having a little bit of a discussion with a couple of friends of mine, one from eastern Montana, one from southern Ohio. The one from southern Ohio, much more moderate. Ohio is a swing state for a reason, because there's enough of an even number of Republicans and Democrats that it can go either way. And candidates have to spend a lot of time, presidential candidates have to spend a lot of time in Ohio campaigning, compared with other states that are solidly red, solidly blue. And as a consequence of that, there's less extreme opinions in even the conservative and liberal people, residents of the state of Ohio. Eastern Montana especially, Western Montana's got liberals, tree huggers, that kind of people, environmentalists. Eastern side of the state, very solidly red. And so this friend of mine, he's from the eastern side of the state, very solidly red. And we're talking about colonialism and Black Panther. And oh no, can I say that and have this shared to Facebook? Because I've just engaged in political speech. Oh no, I should have just stuck to a movie. Oh, but no, I can't talk about a movie anymore because now I'm talking about values and education. Anyway, we're talking about this stuff. We're talking about colonialism and talking about Native Americans and Africans and the cultures of various people groups and how those cultures have either contributed to their being wealthy and prosperous nations or being marginal and backwards and impoverished and chaotic and dangerous. If you think about, we'll paint with broad brushes. I'll use the common parlance, how this is all characterized. If you take it seriously, whatever. You were in trouble before I said it, and my saying it didn't get you in any worse trouble. White Europeans come over to the Americas. They explore. They're looking for a trade route to get to Asia, to trade with Asia that doesn't involve having to navigate between all the Muslim pirates that like to take their cut and like to enslave white men and white women, any that they can catch, and treat them brutally, work them to death, all that. They want to find another way around that isn't so costly, it isn't so dangerous, and cut out the middleman. And in the process of trying to find a different sea route to trade with Asia, the Europeans come across the Americas. And in coming across the Americas, they start exploring. Well, why wouldn't they? Well, in exploring their diseases that they're, and things that they have become immune to, by and large, they've developed an immunity over generations, living in close proximity with domesticated animals that were not to be found in North America and South America. You know, they start exposing the natives to these European, not even European alone. That was another thing in favor of the Europeans. They had a lot more genetic diversity because Europe is geographically closer, and you have interbreeding between the Europeans and the Middle Easterners and the Africans and the Asians. And so you have a much more diverse genetic makeup to any one group of Europeans, even from one country like Spain or Portugal or wherever. And so even when one guy gets sick, the genetic differences are enough that some of the people in that group might not catch the disease. You know, you might not have everybody come down with the certain sickness that one guy just got. You know, that versus the Native Americans. One guy gets it, and the whole rest of the continent is going to get it now because everybody is much closer related genetically speaking. There's a lot less difference. There's a lot more homogeneity. And so, you know, diseases wipe out all this crap about Europeans bringing about a Holocaust and genocide, killing all these millions of Native Americans. It ain't so. Disease killed the lion's share of them, and then there was conflict, territorial conflict that was inescapable as Europeans moved in, because if you wanted to make an alliance with tribe A, let's say the Nez Perce, and the Blackfeet don't like them, you tried to make friends with one tribe, and now as a consequence this other tribe is at war with you, and they're going to come and kill you, murder you wherever they can, steal your trade goods, and so you can't be at peace with everybody. And unfortunately, one of the casualties, just like European powers fought amongst themselves, the French and the British and the Russians and the English and all of them, the Spanish, they didn't all get along. Was that racism when the French and the English fought with each other? Was it racism when the Spanish, you know, if it was, why does that get overlooked? And the only racism that we see, looking back into the history of it, is the white man versus the red man. Oh, the poor red man got conquered.
Can I fight?
No.
Why? Okay.
Doing a video. Thank you. So, you know, just think about this for a second. One of the big reasons why one Indian tribe might want to make an alliance with these European explorers, you're running around with bows and arrows and knives, and you've got this new group that comes in, and they're bringing guns, germs, and steel, as one popular book about that period puts it. You know, if you can trade, you don't want the germs, obviously. So please, you know, keep that to yourself, Europeans, colonizers, as they're referred to in the Black Panther. But you do want their steel and their guns, and if you can trade beaver pelts and other things like that, then you're absolutely going to. Because the guns are going to give you a competitive advantage against the other tribes you're at war with. And the Indian tribes were at war with each other forever. As far back as there were tribes, they were at war with each other, trying to fight each other and kill each other and conquering each other's territory. That was the law of nature, and they lived by it. No less or more when the Americans and British and all that came into the mix and became one of the factions, one of the tribes to contend with. It was just that technologically we were superior. That's what it came down to, and not just technologically, but genetically, in the sense that we had immunity to diseases that the native tribes had never been exposed to. We had a competitive advantage, and so we won, and that's all there is to it. But let me ask you this: you're tribe A, and you have a choice. You've got tribe B; they're hostile to you. You may way outnumber them. You get to choose. Do you want to arm yourself with bows and arrows, or guns and cannons? Do you want to fight on foot, or would you like to have horses? Would you get the picture. Technology favored the white Europeans decidedly. And that was no small part of why we were victorious, even though we were vastly outnumbered, or our ancestors were vastly outnumbered, who came and settled this country and brought European culture and language and all that. The most important thing that they brought was technology for the purposes of conquering. And then they also brought stable political structures that allowed them to govern this area and to build and grow and all that. And all of that's beside the point. You imagine Democrats, progressives, the Bernie Sanders supporters, and whatever they're going to want after Bernie Sanders. When Bernie Sanders is too old to run for president, I think he probably already is. Whoever they want to run next to realize their vision. They have Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Google, and they get to control that. And we're going to be doing what? How are we going to get our message out as conservatives? Think about that. Now, if you want to create, and people could say, well, we'll come up with another social media site, another platform that we can use instead of Facebook. Go for it. Where is it? I'm looking for it. Where is it? If that's such a great idea, why hasn't it been made yet? And when is it? When is it coming? When are we going to get it? And here's the thing too. Here's the crazy thing about it. This blog, this YouTube channel, my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page. There's no treatment of that as its own independent domain. It doesn't get treated like, oh, hey, you're free to do what you will on your own Facebook page, on your own. Just don't go, intruding onto other people's stuff. No, and if the internet becomes, and obviously it is in a socialist world, in a socialist system, everything needs to be centrally planned, centrally controlled. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, and we need to have the internet under control in order to save you from yourself. And so then, even if you've developed a competitive platform that's supposed to be Facebook but for conservatives, or it's supposed to be actually free instead of restricted and controlled, if it's a YouTube for conservatives, whatever it is, if the socialists have already won by that point, if the progressives and all of that, the Zuckerbergs and all the people that they favor have already used Facebook to mobilize, what does it matter? I mean, it's like saying, it would be like if the Native Americans had said, you know what, we don't really need guns. We don't need European guns. How about we invent our own guns? And we'll have our own guns. We don't need European guns. We'll just let the Europeans have their guns. We'll use our bows and arrows until we invent our own guns. And maybe that's what they said, and maybe that's why they lost. It's very serious what's going on, and of course, and the leftist would absolutely seize on that in a heartbeat to say, see, this guy shouldn't be able to say what he's saying freely. Who gave this guy the right? His YouTube channel needs to be suspended. You give it a strike. You need to suspend his Facebook account. He shouldn't have a Twitter account. He shouldn't have a Pinterest account. He shouldn't have a Gmail account. He shouldn't have cell phone service. He shouldn't have internet access. He shouldn't be able to get on Google and research anything. The logical progression of it is you're either impotent, or if you try to have an influence, they're going to just keep ratcheting it up. And you look at the totalitarian, socialist, Marxist regimes, and eventually it gets to the point where the only tool they've got left in their tool bag is putting people in concentration camps and killing them, because they just won't be silenced, they won't be controlled, and they object. And you could say that's extreme. Boy, we went from, what do you think? Facebook is a right? No, I don't. We went from Facebook telling you have to be authorized to run a political ad. Talking about concentration camps? What? First item on the list of issues that they're not going to let me write about or talk about and run an advertisement about is abortion, the very first issue. Now, unless we haven't really thought this through, unless we don't really mean it, we're just being politically correct in our own political sphere of conservatives and religious people. If we believe a baby is a human life and that to abort a baby in its mother's womb is murder, then, sorry, we're already there, people, to the concentration camps level of evil. Unless you're conceding that you don't actually think that an unborn child is as much a human life as a man, woman, and child being hauled off to a gulag or Auschwitz. If you want to say it's not as serious as all that, imagine all the traction we've been able to make. It just drives the left nuts because they want to have free sex, free love, and they don't want anything getting in the way of them being able to terminate the consequences and to be free from having to raise a child, even if that means murdering that child. So then you're not going to be allowed to have a voice. You're not going to be able to support candidates who would put a stop to abortion. You're not going to be able to share videos of Planned Parenthood executives yucking it up about selling fetal tissue illegally, by the way. You're not going to be able to share an article about the guy who took those videos and was responsible for their coming into being sent to jail instead of the Planned Parenthood people he was videoing and exposing. You can't share an article about that. You can't write an article about that. You can't make a YouTube video about that unless you're very, very sneaky about it. And make no mistake, I intend to continue on as I have with every tool at my disposal, and I've branched off into YouTube. I intend to branch off into any other and all social media that come up until they run me out of the place. And I'm just going to use every tool at my disposal until it's no longer at my disposal. I don't work for the Russians. I think that's pretty obvious. You can ask the 505 people that are on my friends list on Facebook if I work for the Russians. I don't. I'm not Russian. In fact, I think I've taken a pretty hardline stance on Russia. I would not. It would not break my heart if, in order to deal with Iran and China and North Korea, if we ended up having to finally have some kind of a World War III scenario with Putin. I don't think Putin's a good guy. I don't trust him. I'm not saying I'm sure we should, and I'm not saying we shouldn't try and avoid that if we can, but again, not a Russian bot. I'm here in the flesh. I'm not a clever illusion masquerading as a human being. This is not a simulation. This is a real person talking. And I object very strongly, in the strongest possible terms, to this tyranny which is being implemented and the ends to which these means are being employed. I'm able to add 2 and 2 together to make 4, and I should not have my content suppressed just because I'm not willing to say 2 and 2 equals 5. So I think we should all take this seriously. I would encourage you, if you dislike this, because somebody disliked my video from earlier today, which irritates me. I've never had that happen before. I should probably get used to it. It's probably just, it comes with the territory. Somebody disliked my video about Black Panther Trump's MS-13 animals and Americans who don't read. Now, my guess is it's either somebody who is MS-13 or doesn't read. Those would be my 2 first guesses. I think I had good things to say about Black Panther, but maybe it's a black Democrat who doesn't like that I was supportive of Trump's remarks. I don't know. It's hard to tell. But that's what bothers me. That's what bugs me. It's like if you're going to downvote my YouTube video there, at least have the decency to explain why. You should, if it bothered you enough to downvote it, type up, I think you're a duty face and you should comb your hair. I think you should have brushed your teeth because I can smell you through my TV screen or whatever. But if you dislike what I'm saying, explain why. If you think I'm wrong, at least you have the freedom for now to be able to say you think I'm wrong. But imagine a scenario, a future world in which you're not going to have that freedom. Everything's going to be so carefully regulated and licensed that free speech only exists offline. Everything else is a foregone conclusion. That's not the kind of world we want to live in. I've frankly really enjoyed being able to use social media as a platform to communicate about ideas with purpose. And I'm profoundly disturbed about the potential for tyranny and corruption, which this latest development of Facebook represents. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. That makes an hour and 30 seconds. And that makes 2 hours for today. So, thank you. God bless. Be well. Till later.